Hello and welcome to the daily life of the Immortal Lemurians Zoom. I'm Franziska Siragusa, author, Ascension leader, and principal teacher with the Diana Cooper School of White Light. And I'm very grateful and very enthusiastic to be your host for this event. And I feel so honored and privileged to have Lowell Johnson here with me from California. Hello, Lowell. Thank you for being here.
How are you today? Thank you so much for inviting me.
I'm good. How are you?
It's a beautiful day where I am, a little breezier than I had anticipated, but it's just too nice not to be outside.
It looks amazing. Where exactly are you right now?
Just outside Phoenix in Arizona.
In Arizona.
There's family that's here. So we've been here for between here and New Mexico for like the last 6 weeks, maybe longer.
Right.
But there was some work that needed to be done and some family things to pay attention to. So that's why we're in the area.
Okay. So Lowell, you are a protector of Gaia and emissary of Telos. So that's your mission. And you are one of the few and privileged people who have visited the subterranean city of Telos beneath Mount Shasta and made physical contact with the inhabitants who are the Lemurians who escaped to the inner earth thousands of years ago. So how did this happen? How many times have you been there and how did you get in?
You know, when you say it in that way, that's a magnificent thing. And I've never really heard anybody quite put it that way. And this particular scenario today, this is the first live interaction that I've done. Every other one has, we pre-recorded it, and that way, if it needed to be edited, we were good to go. So it's a little unnerving today to go this way.
Well, it's the same for me. It's the first time I'm doing it this way.
Let's see how it goes, right?
Yes.
Look, the thing is, I'm just a regular guy like everybody else. And the fact that I'm starting to have and have had since I visited Shasta in July, and that's 2 years, what's happened in my life and awareness and rise and awakening and consciousness and where all that led. Telos was the trigger, and that was the first thing everybody heard. Well, many of us resonate with Lemurians. Some of us heard the word and don't really understand why. With me, I had a connection in my mind with Atlantis for a long time. And until somebody helped kind of put it all into perspective to really understand what our galactic history is and where I fit along the way. There were guides and people who could help me with some past life regressions that, how do you even look for that kind of thing? You can't really set out that, look, I really want to find those things when you don't even know that that's what you're looking for. I was one of those guys. It wasn't that I was on a spiritual journey for 20 years and I know where my heart is and I know what I want. That was not me. This really awakened. I was awake, snapped out of it in like December of 2015, and my awareness grew. I learned how to meditate so that I could find that quiet space. So, there was the doorway to everything else beyond it if you were open and willing to allow things that would seem out of the ordinary to most people. But if you want to see miracles, then be open to them, because you're going to get what you ask for as long as you're in alignment. So this trip to Shasta came out of nowhere. We were in lockdown because of COVID. And by the time we got to the first part of July, because COVID really hit in where we were, like the end of February, you weren't going anywhere. I was staying with my son because I was visiting him, and many things just changed for everybody then. Anyway, when the opportunity to get out came around again, I resonate best in nature. I know that for certain. And so I was planning just to take a road trip and go to an area in the United States in the Southwest called the Four Corners. So if you know where Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico all come together, that area is rich with national parks, you know, natural phenomena that just, it's easy for me to slide into whatever else is around me then. And that's where I was going to head. And when I started to make the plans, I could see on Facebook that many of these places were questionable about whether they were even going to be open. And so when I saw that, the very next thing that flashed into my head was Shasta. Don't ask me why. I'd driven by it many times and I had heard about, you know, the reputation of energy there, but it had never stopped. So I thought, you know, it's a 4-hour trip from where I was, so it was easy for me to get there. I went there with the idea that I was going to spend about a week. And then my son and I were going to hook up maybe in Tahoe for another week because, hey, if nothing else is going on, let's just go enjoy nature. Well, a week became 2. And in the end, I was there for 5 weeks. There is magic there if you have the time to open yourself up and explore it. Man, it hit me over the head. I really went with the intention that you've heard stories and how Saint Germain made himself present. That's no legend. He passed his information along to somebody in the 30s, and we all benefited from that knowledge. So I'm hoping, I'm going off trail. So I'm alone out here, guys. If there's an opportunity for me to engage an ascended master, here I am. Never in my wildest dreams did I think what would end up happening to me happen. Now that I look back on that, and you know, when it first happens, when something that miraculous happens at first, that's everyone's focus. And like I said, there's just a natural resonance with many people to Lemuria and Telos, and you know, that whole phenomenon that we all wonder about. And so we've done what research we can, and so we can understand it all for ourselves, because look, we're 3-dimensional humans and we need to figure it out. It needs to be within my level of comprehension for me to really grasp a hold of this concept. To see the things that I can see now, you have to forget all that and open yourself up to things that seem to be miraculous. Believe me when I tell you, the dreams that you have are not just dreams. They're experiences you're having. You're wandering down timelines when your alignment is such that all of a sudden, you know, here I went and I saw this. That's what happened to me. Now, I should say that I've had guides that have come along the way. They in themselves miraculous. Last summer, after Telos had happened, there was a guide who came my way. I had never met her before. And when I met her through Mickey Magic, they had been healers together and had done lots of work. They certainly understood, you know, what kind of power and consciousness Andaras carry. And so they've known one another for 10 or 12 years. When I wanted to learn more about Andaras and that whole scenario, I was fortunate enough to, you know, be able to spend some time with Mickey, and you know, we knew that we had known one another as brothers in another place. And so over the course of a few months, I learned what I needed to learn about Andaras, where they came from, what Ethereum was in the first place, who Lady Nelly was in the property, and everything behind all that. And it was an education process for me. It wasn't just the crystal, it was the idea behind it. That what Andaras really here, and the purpose and the reason that they're being found now is to assist in your awareness. It stores codex that will help you unlock your DNA. Now, I don't want to get off track because we started to wander down Andaras. Oh, exactly, they're beautiful. They carry an unmistakable energy, don't they?
So yeah, I mean, I have a whole series of questions. So the questions in particular about the Andaras is whether you consider them like an advanced technology.
Here, I've been around crystals all my life and I've loved them. So I understand that every other crystal, whether it's an amethyst or a quartz or whatever it is, you can program your intent in there. And the crystal has a frequency where it can enhance that and broaden that signal out to help it return to you. Andaras are consciousness. They carry consciousness. So think of them as a best friend. You really don't own one. You steward them. They come into your awareness because there's something that they have to exchange with you. And make no mistake, when we deal with Andaras, that's an energy exchange. We carry Akashic records. Everything we've done, everything we think, that's carried within us. And not just this lifetime, our DNA stores it all. The Andaras carry consciousness of their own and what they've carried along the way. So when we connect with them, that's an exchange of energy. But be mindful that Andara is connected to all of its brothers and sisters on the planet. Yes. When Nellie found them, she knew that her objective was to grid the earth with these things. And over a couple of decades, mission accomplished. She's been gone for a while now, but people like Mickey picked up the baton and continued the work.
Yeah. So can we go back to how you actually entered Telos? How many times have you been there? Have you been there several times?
I've been to that particular portal twice. I didn't go in the second time, but I had an encounter. So let's talk about the first time I was there.
How did you get in?
I was on a hunt that day to see what I thought could have been cave openings. A few days earlier, I had been sitting in a place where the sun had been almost overhead. So shadows are starting to cast on this side of Shastina, which is Mount Shasta's little sister to the left if you're from where I was in Old Ski Bowl Trail. So I thought I was going to go explore this area. It didn't look like an area many people went to because it was off trail. And even the trail that led over there, not many people followed it. They look like they could be potential cave openings. Well, I love that kind of thing. When I was a kid in St. Paul, Minnesota, there were caves down by the river that we spent a lot of time in. And so that was appealing to me. So when I set out to wander over there, it wasn't that I hadn't picked up on energetic vortexes within the area that I had found already, just kind of going off trail. The place is crazy with energy. I don't want to forget where I left off, but by the end of the first week I was there, somebody had to say it out loud. I was hiking every day like I was in my early 20s. I am not in my early 20s. I should have been fatigued the day in between, and it wasn't like that. And until the end of the first week, someone said, yeah, there's just an energy that's here that I just can't describe, but I feel it. And that's when it struck me that holy cow, for 5 days. By that Friday, I had been hiking every day in rigorous places off trail. And the next day I was up and ready to go again. Wow. There's something there, some energetic thing that's there. And then you find these pockets of vortexes that you come across that you know connect to something else. And although when I first got there, I could feel them and you just wanted to bathe yourself in there. I understand I'm a light worker, so I plant my light here. And there's an exchange of energy that takes place with me and whatever that phenomenon is. But there's a lot of them. The place that I finally alluded to opening up, I had found a couple of these energetic things as I was moving my way up the mountain to, these cave openings. Mm-hmm. And they almost looked intentional from whatever design would be there, because there were almost these rocks that surrounded this area, and almost some kind of a tree or plant in the middle of it. As soon as you got close to it, you felt the aura of that energy pocket there, and you just wanted to sit there and take it in. Well, as soon as I got comfortable with this one, there was another one a little bit higher and to my left. So I thought, I'm going to move over and see that, because the nature of it seemed similar. I got there and I could feel as I was coming into it, because, you know, our aura extends out. I could feel that one. As soon as I stepped out of this energy pocket, I could feel that one. And so when I got there, I was going to take that in. And then I was looking at the side of the mountain, and I saw where there was an outcropping of rocks, not too far from where I was, a few more steps up. And I was curious about it, because it looked like, man, you could almost get up and in that. So when I stepped up close enough, there was a rock that was about, it's a little higher than my inseam, because I could get over it. And this particular boulder was narrow, so I could. Then there was another boulder in front of that and a boulder on the other side. So you kind of had this little area that on the inside was probably 8 square feet. So I climbed over it, and whoa, the energy I felt was compounded. So I looked back at where I came from. Off in the distance, I can see the parking lot where I was. I can see the trail. I'm looking out in this direction. But unless somebody knew where I was, no one could see me. Well, then I sat down after I, planted my light, because I do that in every little place where I find an energy exchange to see what it has to offer me, what's meant for me. I sat down. Now, no one would be able to tell I was there. It was peaceful and quiet. So I was leaning up against this dry brush on the mountain, having some water, eating some grapes, and listening to music, through my phone, through my ear pads. I had finished the water, put the grapes away, and then my ear pods went dead. At the same time, there was a sensation I could sense, and it almost felt like there was a shadow that was coming up from like where I was sitting and kind of covering the ground, like the sun was moving quick, and almost like there was a canopy over me doing the same thing. Well, I'm trying to understand this experience, and all of a sudden I feel a breeze from behind me. Well, when I turned around to look, there's an opening at the peak of it. It's rounded, it's probably 9 feet tall. And so I stand up to see what this is. There's a rise that goes up, and my eyes are trying to adjust because of the sun behind me. But down there, it looks like it goes down and there's an incline. And as my eyes are adjusting, it looks like there's somebody down there. And as soon as that awareness came to me, I heard someone say, "Do you wish to see Telos?" Well, my heart raced, but I said yes, and moved down. In retrospect, this was probably a lava tube. There's a lot of these cavities in there. I started to make my way down. At first, I thought whoever this was looked to be about my size. I'm 6 feet tall. As I got closer, this person is not 6 feet tall. They were, when I got next to this being, he was 8 feet tall, if anything.
8 feet.
On the incline, it didn't look like that. But when I could finally tell who that was and my eyes adjusted to the light conditions there.
Is that like over 3 meters, yeah? I think it's 3 meters and 20 centimeters.
That would be about right. Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
He said, "You can call me Alice." I said, "That'll be easy. That's my son's name." He said, "Yeah, we know about your son. Follow me." So as we moved our way down this incline, you could tell at the bottom there was some light there, but you just couldn't tell, what it was or who was there. When we got closer, I looked behind me, and wherever we had come from, and there was a light source there, it was dark. So there was nothing behind me any longer. But when we got to the bottom, this area opened up to what I would call like a staging area. So if there was some kind of a transport and you were off to somewhere, that's what my mind puts together. Because when we saw it, there were 5 of these tubes going off in that direction. But as soon as you came in, there was like this, I want to say it's a pedestal. It's about 6 feet square. And there were 2 what appeared to be like bucket seats on it. There was another one off to the left over there, and there was another one off to the right over there. And while I'm taking all this in, Alex had made his way around and sat in the other side and indicated for me to sit at the seat next to him. And as soon as I did, this thing levitated, and off we go into that center tube. Now, the sensation of movement, like a breeze coming through or wind, you didn't feel any of that sensation, but you were moving.
Okay.
Explain, I don't understand it. There's still physicality. Yeah, I'm still my body, but I'm aware of other things. As we're going through this tube, he's telling me about the history, how the council is set up. Yes, there's still a king and a queen of Telos, because Telos is a city within Agartha. And then he began to explain the nature of the levels. As this is taking place, I can tell at the other end of this tube, there's light coming from that end too. And now you're noticing that the walls of this place, each time you move a little bit, the light refraction changes, and it's like going through a kaleidoscope. It was just beautiful. Whatever crystals are embedded into this lava tube or whatever light, whatever it was hitting, the light made it crazy colors and things beyond the spectrum I'm used to seeing. It was crazy. As much as I delighted in that, I could have sat through there all day long and just enjoyed that. But as soon as we got to the other end, there was an opening that opened up. And as soon as we got through it, we levitated up. And so you've seen pictures of cityscapes. This is what I'm seeing now. This is the perspective I have of Telos. Oh my God. My heart was racing because I was in a kaleidoscope a moment ago that was beautiful. This is incredible. The city is circular in design. And in the middle of it is there's a pyramid. They say it's large enough to hold 10,000. And at the top of it is a capstone. You can't miss this thing. It's huge.
Sorry,
what I learned later.
Can I just ask some questions? How many people do
Of
actually
course.
live there in Telos? How many people live in that city?
I don't know for certain, but here's what I've learned. That originally when the Lemurians occupied it because the Lemuria was sinking, that was 25,000 or so. Now, from what I understand, and I'm not sure where the information comes from, but the number 1.2 million is what they suspect. I have no way of validating that today.
Yeah. And how many years ago did the Lemurians then come there? Do you know that?
They've been here for 300,000 years.
300,000.
And it was, I'm trying to think of how long ago in our timeline we would consider that. 30 or 40,000 years, I want to say. There were some artifacts I've seen that were Anunnaki in nature, and they were 30,000 years old.
So they have a different timeline? Is that what you're saying?
Honey, they don't measure time the way that we do. They're fourth and fifth dimensional beings. And so their experiences are different. We still live here in duality, and we see time on a clock and a calendar. Mm-hmm. They don't see things that way. They already understand the law of one, and that we're all part of a bigger thing. Yes, we're still individual souls. We were sparks of source, and we each have our own lessons to learn and our Akashic records to offer. And we play an important part as a special puzzle piece in the universe. And without it, the universe is not complete. That's why we weren't meant to all march it the same way. No, we don't need lots of puzzle pieces. We need a variety of them. So with the special, unique gifts I have, you have, I know what I can do with what I can do now in the fourth dimension and with higher consciousness. Imagine what two people that had those special gifts and they were different can do together. That's the mentality that they have. That's the culture we're about to experience. Earth is already in ascension. There's two different pieces of ascension taking place here. The planetary ascension, which it's coming. Earth is moving into the fourth dimension. She's halfway through this. If you want to think of it as like a figure eight, she's halfway through this before she's just birthed a new Earth. Then there's our individual ascension that we have to work on. And our vibration has to match that of the environment we wish to experience. So if I want to ascend with her, I need a high vibration. I need to be in alignment so that I can match that vibration and take that light that's coming our way right now and put it to use and be ready. So, when Earth shifts, your vibration's already there. You just go with her if that was the choice. There are many, many souls that are not ready yet or just beginning to awaken like me. I mean, my accelerations happened in 2 years. Holy cow. I've seen things that I now know were meant to happen the way that they were. I know that I came back for this particular purpose. And it was to be here at the time that the shift was going to take place so that others could look at me and go, well, if he understands it, then, I know that there's something about it. When these miraculous things began to happen, I wanted to understand them as well. Who do you ask? What touchstone do you find? That's what we're all trying to seek. So the importance in what happened to me wasn't that it's a cool story to hear. It's that it's going to happen to you too. And you're going to want someone that without risk, you can explain these crazy things to that aren't crazy. They're experiences that are meant for you, and they're meant to broaden, the lessons you came here to learn. Then your job is to, everything that gets stored in your Akashic records eventually gets stored with the collective. You help us all with the lessons that you're learning. That's what these incarnations were about. So many of us are just so tied up in, living 3D lives that we don't see beyond that. Oh, this life is over when I die and I don't know what happens. I lose everything after that. No, that's not true. If you see it from the perspective that I've learned to see it from, we've been through this Earth experiment many times. We came to learn lessons. We played different roles. That our job is to assist the universe in evolving. That's it.
Absolutely. So can we go back to Alex, your guide? So did he communicate with you in English, just normal?
Yes. Yeah, it was interesting. He had rather a little British or Australian, whatever that inflection in your language would be, but he spoke English, and I understood it. Everyone that I did communicate with, and there were 3 people I got to listen to, they all spoke English so that I could understand. And
they all spoke with that same accent, or would they speak differently? Same.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a dialect but as time goes on, I put these things in perspective. I wonder when we get to the next level of communication, when we're all vibrating at least the 4th dimensional level, what language do you think we're going to choose to speak? Well, we're not going to speak. We can all telekinesis is, you already know, you and I are connected, so we know what we're thinking.
Yeah.
We'll communicate though with sound, music, symbols, sacred geometry, and colors. Those are the things that we'll communicate with. So, use your imagination, because the rest of it, I'm already connected to you on the inside. So you already know what my thoughts are.
So
And
telepathy.
Oh, yes.
So do people in Telos speak to each other in language like they did with you, or do they communicate telepathically?
I didn't hear that take place, so I really can't
didn't
speak to it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can only limit the things that I witnessed myself. I don't want to wander off and say, "Wow, I think it happened like this." The opportunity to return is coming soon. When I was there, let's answer the questions you've got before I just wander off, because I can talk on a variety of topics pretty easy.
Well, so you said you met 3 people. Is that what you said? You only met 3 other people, or did you actually see the crowds of people?
When we were there, after, let me take you back to the tour.
Yeah,
I kind of left you. I had seen the pyramid, and I talked about the capstone. The capstone was a gift from Venus. And I learned later from Diane Robbins, who's written and experienced, Telos and Adama for longer than I probably should say. She was a wonderful resource. That capstone changes colors based on the day of the week. So when I saw Alex, and he was adorned in like this white frock, call it what you want. He had some colorful ribbons on, but it was white. That explains why he and everyone else is wearing white, because Sunday is white. If it was Wednesday, it would have been green. If it was Saturday, it would have been purple. I'll have to go back on another day to see what it looks like on those days of the week.
Is that connected with the divine rays, with the 12 divine rays, that they dress in different colors on different days?
I don't know.
Okay, all right. So white,
but they're good questions,
ribbons.
so I'm going to store them up.
So do you know what these ribbons were about?
No, I never got an answer to that. To me, they either represented, in my mind, some rank he held, spiritually, maybe that was rank, or whether that's just Lemurian bling. It's just, some ribbons that come off your garb. When I took in the city, which is all crystal, it's magnificent. There was one building in particular, or room, call it what you want, that was kind of circular off to the right, that was notable. I don't know why my attention was drawn to, but I noticed it then. So we kind of hovered over the rest of the area before we proceeded to the 3rd level, which I'm not quite sure how we got there like we did. But before we had left that area, we kind of came down enough so I could make eye contact with 5 or 6 people. And I swear, each time I did, I knew them, and that they knew me.
Right.
But the moment just fleeted so quickly. Okay, take it in, log it in, and let's move on, and we'll come back and address that. When we went to the 3rd level, you saw, imagine what 7 acres of hydroponic gardening looks like. There's no soil. Water is charged with crystal. And what always occurred to me when I looked at that, let's assume that the number 1.2 million is really what the population of Telos is. I have no idea if that's true or not, but let's just assume that it is. What perpetuates itself, quickly within that hydroponic space feeds the entire population. Now, it's designed so, yes, it does perpetuate itself a little more quickly, but imagine, oh my God, that's a lot of food for that number of people. Let me put this into perspective. When we go from this form that we're in right now, this carbon-based being, we're getting mutated as we speak into crystalline. Well, crystalline uses energy a little bit differently. Our form is going to change. So if we take in that kind of energy, we don't have to worry about a system that has to get rid of it. We don't carry that form. That energy uses in its entirety. So no energy ever gets wasted. And now I can see you don't have to eat as much. that could very well sustain that number of beings when your diet changes so drastic.
Right.
Really, you're interested in taking in more light. You are a light being. It just, you have a new form, just like we are now. We don't realize we're light beings, but we are, and we're taking in light now. We're in carbon form right now, but that's about to change.
Can I ask about, sorry, can I ask about the gardens some more? So these hydroponic gardens, are they like towers with holes?
Yes,
Where,
beautiful.
and
Yes.
and can we do this already now? Could we do this?
Oh yes,
We
in many
could.
places do.
They do.
There wasn't really the way to move moisture through that so plants can stay hydrated is really, it looked like what the technology was surrounding. And if you look at some of the indoor hydroponic gardens we have, the technology and the way that they went about it's the same way. It's water. You're moving water, intelligently, but they certainly have crystals that assist in the process.
Okay.
This is nothing but we're all electromagnetic beings, are we not? Like everything else. So when we're taking in that kind of energy, really in the end, we're taking in protons that we got from the sun, whether you're eating it in a plant that absorbed it, or now in this form, everything that we ingest has some solar influence in it, whether it's dead animals or whether it's live plants. I think that the world woke up over a while and they understood the difference. That when we take in dead matter, well, that satisfies this carbon body, but that's not really what I crave. I love to be out in the sunlight, and so that's why we prefer fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, those type of things. As my journey went along, I lost 35 pounds, and it wasn't because I dieted or I joined a regimen. Source just had me crave different things. And as I changed what I ate and I spent more time outside, wow, my form just changed.
Wow. So these hydroponic gardens, these towers, what do you know what materials they used? What were they made of in Telos?
They looked like PVC, but there's no man-made material there at all. Whatever, they've manifested to move that stuff through. I can't say it was crystal, because that seems to be the most malleable thing that they make everything out of there. I can't really understand it better than that. We didn't spend a lot of time in the area, so you got to look at this expanse, not really see it in detail. He explained how it functioned, and then we're off and back up to the main level, and back over to the building I was telling you about.
Okay. All right, and this water that they use, so do they need a kind of technology to water these towers?
I wish I had more
You don't know. Okay,
technical information. I don't.
All right, carry on.
Well, now we're back up to the main level.
Yeah.
And we move over to that space that I had noticed before. And when we got there, it was, the building is crystal. It's just a circular room, and it's made out of crystal panels. The opening is wide enough for, if it would have had French doors, it was wide enough for that, but there were no doors. And as we got there and stepped off this platform, I noticed that there were etchings on either side of the doorway, etched into the crystal. And I recognized them. When I first went to Shasta, I got there on a Sunday and it was too late to really hike. So I thought, I'm going to walk down Main Street and see what's here. There was one shop, Blue Star Child Gallery. Haruko, this wonderful little sprite, is the proprietor and the artist, and the stuff in the windows just kind of drew you in. Well, that day I was just kind of scoping it out, So I wasn't going to spend time going through the gallery today, but as I was turning to leave, there's 10-foot ceilings in this place. And there was a drawing that looked like some kind of light code that was perfectly symmetric, 10 feet tall, 3 feet wide. And this wasn't the only one on the wall. There were many of them. Oh my God. So I came back a few days later to explore this place some more. And these were codes that she had envisioned, and she was, compelled to write them on this paper. She's got a whole playful side of her that gets to express itself. But I want to focus just on these light codes because she drew them by hand. She colored them by hand. She used no straight edges and no curvature tools. These things took her months. They were magnificent. When you went through her gallery, there's 3 sections. And in the final section in the back, it's actually a small room that holds 5 of these things where you can actually close the door and experience them in a meditative state. Well, when I found that room that day, I went back, I was there on late morning. I was the only person there. So I came out when I found this place. I had nothing really to do that particular day. So I came out and I asked, would you mind if I just sat in there for 10 minutes or so and meditate? She goes, take all the time you want. That's what it's for. So as I took in the energy from these things, and I had some crystals I was carrying on me, and I put one under each one of these, I noticed that the one on the left was the light code for the new earth. And this one was the new angelic blueprint. Those codes were the codes that I saw etched on those panels that day that I visited. And when I saw them, I made a remark. I said, these look familiar to me. And Alex said, yeah, those are Haruko's. They're accurate. And so we etched them here. This is the council chambers. So when you look inside, there's just a round table in the middle. It's the only wood I've seen in the entire place. This is a round wooden table with 13 chairs around it, and this is where the council meets. As soon as you step into this space, there is some kind of sensation. I don't know how to really put it. There's something that just hits you in your heart core, like if you could take a hug and you could put it in your hand and press it into somebody. That's what this was. Wow. And it just pressed on you like this the entire time you were in the space, or at least while I was in the space. Yeah. So I can only imagine looking back on that. If you have council matters to deal with and you're pounding somebody in the heart with love, things are going to go smoothly, I would guess. As I'm taking this place in and noticing everything else is crystal in the place.
So and I should mention all the houses were all crystal colored.
I could not, when we were outside before we went into the space, I just want to stop here for a moment. I couldn't see the top of whatever cavity this was in. You couldn't see, you're underground, but I can't see the top. It was lit like daylight, but no sun. So I don't know what the source of light energy was, but there were no shadows that were casted. So you go figure it out. Crazy. Daylight, no sun. So back in the council chambers, as we were taking this in, 5 people now are approaching from an entry over on the other side. I can tell the guy in the middle is a Dama because he looks similar to his pictures, but those pictures do not do this guy justice. And he is a foot taller than everybody else. He's flanked on either side by 2 females. And I was invited to take a seat. So they situated themselves 3 on one side of me and 3 on the other side. And they each told me who they were, told me a little bit about who they were. I knew Adama, because who doesn't? I remembered Alex, and I would be lying if I told you I remembered everybody else. The only name I recalled was the first woman who spoke, Shyama, because from that point on, during the dialogue, she was the one who seemed to chair this meeting, if you wanted to see it that way. So when we sat, I was about to learn why I was here. She went on to say that that was back in July of 2020. The Telosians had been preparing for the time when the shift was going to happen. And they're looking forward to the time when humanity's consciousness rises enough for them to be able to communicate again, and they will make themselves known. They're ready to integrate with us on the surface. They have wonderful technology they wish to share. And they see us as we've come a long way. But the differences between humanity and where their minds are, they see things logically. And it's not that they're lost on, hot, cold, black, white. They see duality too, but they rise above it. They see solutions for it. They don't have to pitch camps and I have to pick a side. They know better than that. But so that their decision-making isn't all that emotionally charged. This is what makes humanity unique. This is where our creativity comes from, is from what our feelings are. So they see a wonderful blend when they can take that technology and let it loose with humanity's creativity in a fourth dimensional kind of thought pattern. What that kind of magic's going to be. Look, the whole galaxy has been watching the Earth experiment for a long time. And there are other planets that are going to be going through this same thing later. Those of us, those souls that were here to assist with this are going to be very valuable to other places as resources, because there are going to be other shifts that take place in other places similar to the Earth. If you understand that there is life elsewhere in the universe other than just here. Your soul chose the time to be here, and you're either when the shift happens, you're either going to fall off and you didn't make it, so you're going to play some third dimensional lessons out somewhere else. And if you're fourth dimension and you decide to hang on, you're going to New Earth. Well, I know that's the choice I make. I'm staying here on the planet because when we get there, it's going to be cool and something to celebrate. Anyhow, they saw that same timeline. In my mind, all my due diligence had said winter solstice 2020 was when this shift was going to perpetuate, or somewhere else. I mean, I know it's not a solid date, but something inside of me said prepare for that. So I did. And every time, the things that happened now between the first part of August and December, I'm listening to my friends making plans for 5 years out, and I'm going, man, guys, things are going to be very different. And when that didn't materialize in winter, I thought first, well, I had it wrong. Well, no, we're in the middle of it. Ascension is a process, Lowell. It's not a snap. It's not a lightning snap. It doesn't happen that way. It's a process. So anyway, they agreed that they thought that time was about right. And so when that time came, they wanted emissaries who would help them with this reassimilation. And so they were there to ask if I would consider being one of those emissaries. Now, I'm pretty dumb at the time, and I don't really know what I should know in the end. There were 3 reasons why I was chosen. 1, I could demonstrate that I could hold fifth dimensional consciousness, so I can understand the perspectives and rise above duality and letting your ego drive. 2, they had heard that I was a protector of Gaia and I was the guy they were looking for. Well, that was an experience and a label I got in an ayahuasca journey 2 years earlier. How did they know that?
Oh, okay.
And the third was that then this whole discussion about an emissary came along. It wasn't until April later that I realized the reason why, the last answer, why I was asked. And someone I knew I had met in Shasta, they have a lot of regard for, said, why they invited you, Lowell? I said, well, if you have some inside information, I'd love to hear it. He said, well, you're one of them. You came back in this incarnation, knowing that this connection was going to take place. So you came to be on this side of the wall in third dimension. When the time came to rejoin with everybody else, when the dimensions rose and consciousness rose and humanity was ready for this, then you were already on this side. You're already one of them.
So you were a Lemurian and you've incarnated again, or have you also lived in Telos before?
Apparently, I did.
You also lived in Telos. Oh wow, that's
Yes.
interesting.
Yes, there's some past life regression I want to spend some time on and go back.
Yeah.
Let me finish this and then I'll tell you what happened when I returned the following year. When they asked at the end, and Adama had spoken after Shyama, that was it. There wasn't a whole lot of discussion. He just said that the council was unanimous and they hoped that I would consider being an emissary when the time came. And so I stammered out, I would be honored. And with that, the meeting was over. They stood, they bowed, and they went on their own way. And then Alex and I left. When I left the room, it felt like it was a whirlwind. It felt like we were in there and I was in this cavity for hours. In the end, I was there for, I don't know, not quite an hour and 15 minutes or so. Anyway, as we made our way back to that staging area, I was just taking in what I had seen and heard. I hadn't spoke other than that answer. I just wanted to take it all in. But I did have a couple of questions that I got to ask. And so at the end, I asked Alex, can I tell anybody about what happened here today? They said, you can tell anybody you want. In fact, we want people to know that we're here and what our purpose is and what our plan is. We're not worried about anybody finding their way here without our knowledge and our consent. You didn't. When the time comes for it to be open, it will be open. They explained those other energy vortexes that I had sensed before. Those are all portals to this next step in dimension. You don't need to find the place I passed through the wall. There are many energetic portals that are ready for the day that this is going to take place. So there will be many places that you can enter and get to the same spot.
You mean in different countries as well, or you mean literally there?
Yes.
You mean everywhere?
Yes. There are some places that are energetically just on the grid. Clearly, Shasta is one of those. Tibet is one of those. I mean, you can name lots of areas that go near the pyramids. People are flocking to go to Egypt for reasons they can't really understand, but they are.
I understand Telos is situated in the mantle of the earth, and when you go deeper, you'll find hollow earth. So if we enter from somewhere else on the planet, we can then travel in the
Oh yes, hollow earth it's a dimensional thing. We still want to understand it with a three-dimensional brain, and we want to think that that is all physical, and how does it move, and how does it open, and where are the cavities. In the fourth dimension, those things, that construct is entirely different. It exists today.
Yeah,
it's
I
all
believe
there
it.
now.
Yeah, I believe
if
it.
you're in the right alignment, you can get there and you can wander. But just know that where your attention goes is where your attention goes. So if you have another life to live, I have been reluctant in a couple of times when I've had the ability to wander down timelines. I got a chance to sit in front of a crystal skull, not just once, but 3 times within 4 days. And the first 2 times, honestly, I was with others in the room. And I knew that if I let myself go, you never know exactly when you're going to come back if you really want this to just take you where it's supposed to take you. And so the first 2 times I resisted for that reason. Look, I'm in a room with 12 other people. I shouldn't be wandering off now. But the last time when I did, when you look inside the eyes directly into one of those vessels, it'll take you wherever you wish to go. through its channel. Each crystal skull, I now understand, carries one of the emerald tablets. They were stored when the emerald tablets were distributed to those priests. When the time came, those 12, they were also deposited in those crystal skulls. That's why there's 12. It's crazy stuff. See, now how did I come across that information? The truth just kind of comes around.
Smaller one.
I had to learn about them. You know, as much as I say that I'm a crystal aficionado, really, I was never attracted to crystal skulls. And honestly, first, just the idea of a skull to me was a negative connotation. And so I kind of resisted them all along. Well, I didn't know what I didn't know. And these crystal skulls are not that at all. There is magic inside of these. They carry Akashic records of their own. Now, they don't vibrate like an Andara is with consciousness, but believe me, these things are still like quartz-based and they're connected to one another. Yikes. So, okay, that took us through Telos. Oh, the other question I asked was, can I return? And the answer Alex gave me is, you'll be able to return prior to the shift. That was it.
Prior to the shift. So you can't just return when you want to. It has to be like, you have to be invited.
I know differently now. With what frame of reference and what awareness I had when I heard that news, I didn't know that anymore. I was a third dimensional being having a fourth dimensional experience and not really putting it all together. Now, from the perspective I'm at, I can go there anytime I want now. Anytime. It's not just a physical thing. I can get there from here if I want to, bilocate in that way and communicate just the way that I did. My visit to Telos was a multidimensional experience. Right. And when that came to me, that was what I was trying to express to others. Look, guys, Telos, magnificent, for sure, magic. But you can have any magic experience you want once you get yourself to the place where you can vibrate at that next dimensional level. Everything that's around you is yours to experience. So I wanted to go back to that spot, of course. The following April was the first opportunity that I had to go back to Shasta, and I was only going to be there for 4 days. That's when the revelation about my Telosian past was revealed to me. But there was still a lot of snow on the ground. I had limited time while I was there. So that wasn't going to be the time I was going to be able to go back to the spot without making a hike, a significant hike. And I didn't have a day to allocate to that. It wasn't that I wasn't interested, but it just wasn't going to work. So when I came back toward the end of May, I was going to spend a few days. And as I do when I get there, I always drive straight up to the top of the mountain to see how much is open and what's clear. There's a place called Bunny Flats. That's a popular spot. And normally when there's snow, the road after that, they don't plow. They don't bother with it. It's just closed and normally doesn't open now that I understand it until like July 1st. But I was determined to go back to the spot. So I thought, okay, I got there Thursday. I see where I am. I'm coming back here. I'll start at 9 o'clock and I'm just going to go as the crow flies and pick a spot that goes towards Shastina and I'll make my way there eventually. It took me 4 hours because I forgot that there are valleys here. And just when I reached the elevation, because this spot's about a little over 8,900 feet, that I got to that only to realize there was another valley I had to go down. And then I had to negotiate this change in elevation all over again. That was one reason it took me 4 hours to get there. And the other was that along the way, I had found 4 of those energetic areas I was telling you about that just looked like they're little gnome or fairy villages with just inviting places, just waiting for someone to come along and experience it. So I sat there a few minutes to just take those in. I took pictures of all of them. I took compass snapshots as well. I have an iPhone. Everyone has a compass on it. So I wanted to understand where those points were. It shows your longitude and latitude. So I made sure that I locked those in so I'd be able to find them later. And then I plotted them on a map. When I finally got to the area that had opened up as a portal for me in the past, and I was approaching it, this time I saw those energetic portals. They have formed to me now. They are almost holographic so that you can see their form. And when I looked up at the spot where I was, I could see where the opening had to have been, because that was like an energetic cutout. Now, when I got back up into it, I no longer saw it that way, but I'm feeling this energetic vibe anyway, like I did the last time. So I turned around first. I hiked here to get here. There's no one else there, period. Normally, this has 3 stages of parking lots, which are always filled with people, family, couples. I had this place to myself because the road was closed. As I was planting my light one more time, I felt a breeze from behind me again. And when I turned around, I had leaned up against that middle rock and turned around to see the opening was there. And there was Shyama standing in the opening, just on the other side, and close enough. She had this green holographic looking dress, I guess, if you want to call it. And she's 8 feet tall, so she makes a stunning presence.
Wow.
I had thought, why don't you step out? And before anybody could utter anything, the answer already came to me. You can't step in here without dropping your vibration. She would have to do that to step into the 3rd dimension. Yeah. And so I said out loud, who would do that? And she said, well, you did. I guess I did.
You did.
We chatted about a few other things. I was there really for about 45 minutes before I walked down the road to return. But the last really 15 minutes or so was just looking at Shasta and the area where we were from our perspective, and knowing that this view in the 3rd dimension is about to change. So take it in now and enjoy the 3rd dimension while you can, because something more magnificent is coming. But this was pretty magnificent.
Can I ask about her appearance? I mean, how do they have the hair? How do they?
She had dark hair.
Dark. Okay.
2 of the women that I saw that earlier day had dark hair, and 2 of them had blonde hair. They all, to me, if I had to characterize them, all look Scandinavian.
Scandinavian.
But I understand that that's kind of a hallmark of the Pleiadians and some of the Syrians, that they have that look about them anyway. And we all know that lots of us that came from those places originally.
But yeah, I mean, the Lemurians originally, would they have come from all over the universe, or?
Yes,
they would.
exactly.
So from different stars, they came to Lemuria at that time.
I heard a wonderful YouTube the other day that I actually listened to twice, about an hour and 15 minutes long. And I had heard of Judith Kusel before, but I had never heard her. She was being interviewed by somebody that wanted to interview me, and I thought I would listen. Well, Judith is a librarian by trade, but she's an Akashic librarian. What she knew about galactic history and laid out that day was the best explanation of it I have ever heard. If you understand in Earth's evolution, with peppering it with humanity, where Elysium fell into the things, and then Avalon, and then Lemuria, and then Atlantis, she connected the dots wonderfully. So I know we were all Lemurian. And when she went to explain the nature of who Lemurians were back then, that they were asexual, that they carried both a balance of masculine and feminine. They had evolved to that level, and their existence had been that. When Atlantis was reborn and that picked off, that's when they wanted to explore physicality.
Yes.
And there was more focus placed on masculine versus feminine. And so here's where we are. Eons later, that was labeled the fall. We fell from higher dimensions into third to experience it. We had no idea what it was going to take to crawl out of that. Whoa.
And can I also ask about shoes? Do they wear shoes?
I didn't notice footwear because
whatever
I didn't look down at their feet. And if I would have, it was whatever frock they were wearing was just kind of loose, and they did not wear pants and shirts.
Right. And do you know if they live in family units like we do here, or they do?
They do. The union between people is totally, marriage isn't a requirement, and you can have a relationship with anybody. They neither encourage it nor discourage it. That culture is about addressing your spiritual advancement.
Yes.
You can do that with a partner. And if you wish to commit to them, that's certainly a declaration you can make within the collective. And everyone honors that and respects it. But they look beyond me and you. They've removed labels. The culture doesn't try and pocket us. They recognize that the individuality we have is a necessary component of this puzzle. And that whatever gift you're carrying, God, we're glad you're here and we're glad you carry it. One day you're going to be called to plug that in, and you're going to be the only one that can do it. The rest of us will look at you like you're a marvel because we could never do that. And to you, it's the easiest thing you've ever done.
Right. And do you know anything about the spiritual practices? Do they meditate? Do they connect with source, with higher beings?
That, from what I understand, is the majority of their education process. It's to spotlight what is within each one of them and to focus on that exploration. I don't understand entirely how children are reared, but there are children. And I think the age of 6, there's a regimen that the parents go through. And then from 6 to 16, it's really, it takes a village. I don't say that, to joke about it, but the entire community contributes to your spiritual advancement. And the work that's done is to try and figure out what exact gift it is that you have so that you learn how to express that authentically. That is the place I want to get to, so that we don't worry about what we worry about in this world. And our job is to figure out exactly what your gift is so that you get to express it.
So would they have jobs? Would they have different,
there are people that certainly work in the Hydroponic Gardens, but I understand that is a delightful 4 to 6 hour workday if you choose it to be that long. Normally the regimen is, when you get up in the morning, there is a meditation period where you are just connecting to the day, setting your intentions for what's going to happen for the day. So I'm sure that they have affirmations that they use that just get their day started. And then after that quiet space, when you've connected with what your intentions want to be and you begin to manifest what you want, then everybody gets to express their gifts in a different way. There are still people that are wonderful artists. It's not that they sell their wares.
Okay, so
those are gifts to the rest of us. They don't pay for food. They don't pay for their clothing. They don't pay for their housing. The collective contributes all that. There are regional places where food is distributed, but other than that, that's about as mechanical as it works. So, people volunteer their particular gifts to fit in whatever capacity the community needs it to.
Do they have like psychic powers, like they can just materialize things they need? Yes.
The fourth dimension is a place where we get that awareness back. You don't spend too much time there, because really you just sort out your karma, balance it out, and you immediately elevate to the fifth dimension. Now, there are 12 scales within the fifth dimension before you reach sixth dimension. There's 12 overtones in each dimension, each density. And so, that's a progression too. Each lesson contributes to what you're learning and what you're bringing back. But in fifth dimension, even in fourth dimension, you manifest your realities. You manifest you're a co-creator. So the things that you want, the design of their places is whatever they want it to be.
Have you been inside one of the houses, like where people live? No.
Not yet. But
anything
when I return, I will give you a report.
About hygiene? Do they have showers? Do they have to shave? Things like that?
They're not carbon-based at all.
They're
light beings.
Okay.
They're crystalline light.
And do they sleep? I can see in the chat.
I just saw that question pop up. You have to imagine, yes, they would, but the amount of rest that they need isn't very much at all. And I imagine that while you're resting, you're still, think of yourself as this little capacitor. I'm taking in energy and I'm expressing energy. There's still a period then where I guess it would feel like you're a solar panel. And so you're just charging under those circumstances too. But all of that is an exchange. You're taking in, adamantine particles of light only to express them back out.
So people would like to ask questions. I still have many more, but let's answer some here.
I've got no place to be in particular, so we can go as long as we need to.
Well, I'm going to read out some of the ones here from the chat. So Melinda is asking you whether you saw trees in Telos.
I did not, but the fourth and fifth levels, I've been told, especially the fifth level, is nothing but a wonderland of forests and lakes and flora and fauna and animals, some that have been on the surface, some that have not. And when this change takes place, we'll be able to see things that have been there waiting. Okay, and did you see any animals? They're asking about nature and animals, no animals. Okay, here's another question.
Not yet.
How do you cope with coming back from the 4D place into the 3D place? How do you live your life here? Completely guided by Source?
That is an excellent question. And it's one that I give thought to all the time, because once you go to those places, you don't want to return. There's so much peace there. And the environment, the color spectrums I see, the forms I get to see, when I tell you I see fairies, it's truthful. When I tell you I've seen gnomes in the forest, it's truthful. When you vibrate at that same level, then the idea of unicorns and dragons and serpents that are all benevolent parts of you, there's truth to all that. The things that we were told and conditioned with didn't cover any of that information. So it's left to our poor little 3D minds to try and figure out if we can really understand what the universe is really trying to show us outside of this particular incarnation we're living in and the wherewithal that we have at our disposal right now. The news for me is that that wherewithal is changing while we're here now. Most people in the past, I look at all my ancestors, they went through their lives clueless about any of this additional realm. And yet we know it's been there. why is the awareness opening up for not just me, but lots of others to answer questions on things that I don't quite understand, but I know is there? Who do I talk to about it? Where can I get these references? Most of it has been discounted as people that are having fantasies and they're crazy, but we know that's not true.
Yeah.
And that people are having and reporting authentic experiences. When my experience came around at first, and I began to ask people, why me? When I encountered the guide that came along, the hybrid that came along and connected me with light beings last summer, I didn't know how to put it in perspective. And that was taking place with an agreement that I had made in the past. And I was just totally aware of what was triggering at the time until later you can assimilate it all and look back on the experience. Now I know what that was about.
Yeah. So the next question here is, what colors have the crystal buildings?
Well, if you've seen Andara crystals, there's a variety of colors. The whole city, it wasn't like looking at shiny crystal quartz. No, there was color throughout the city.
Oh, wow. All the
Oh,
colors of the Andaras. That must look really amazing.
if I could take this headset out and plug it into YouTube where somebody else could see what I saw, that's the only way of really describing how magnificent it was, because you can't describe the color spectrums I get to witness, and you can't describe the audio spectrums that I didn't have connection to, and somehow downloads have changed me, so I hear things I didn't hear before. And it's not that I hear higher pitches or lower pitches, it's not that. I hear things that are around me that unless you're really paying attention, it would be easy to skip over.
So it's like a really colorful place. So are they all made of Andara crystals or also other?
I want to say that there's definitely quartz throughout the place.
Quartz.
And I have an opinion there's another mound nearby Mount Shasta.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Black Butte. And if you look at it in scale and saw the tip of it, it almost looks like the end of a huge crystal. And if you were to brush off all the rock, I think that underneath all that is a huge quartz activator. And all its purpose is to amplify the energy coming from Shasta with this form.
Oh, wow.
That's how that's what resonates with me in this thing. Because every time I drive by it, damn it, that's the top of a crystal.
Okay, and Amy Thompson is asking about whether you had contact with any of the people that you saw underneath who spent the night on the surface.
I've, it's funny, I haven't had any contact with them in that way yet. However, I remember when I mentioned that there were 5 or 6 people that I recognized, that I knew them, they knew me. There were 2 people since that experience that have come along, both females, those were 2 of the faces.
So you saw people you met inside on the surface.
They are also Lemurians who have spent time in Telos that are here in this incarnation.
Oh. Okay, and are there other people so they are like you? Is that how you mean? They live mostly on the earth and they're allowed inside?
There are other humans I've met along the way. Their faces are the faces I saw in Lemuria. One of them happened to be the girlfriend of when I was in Shasta last April. It was to talk to Ruben Langdon about filming an episode of Interview with ED. His co-producer, Steve, Barbara is his girlfriend. That girl was one of the faces I saw when I was in there. And immediately when I saw her, I had to do a double take. Oh my God, I've seen your face before.
So you mean she's from Telos, but she lives on the surface now? Is that how you do it? No.
She was not aware until I had mentioned that and triggered something within her. She, like me, had triggers about Atlantis. So she's got past history there. She just had not extended her timeline back as far as Lemuria to realize you were a Lemurian and you spent some time in Telos too, as did Kathy, my other friend. But when I first met her, Kathy's like 6'2" and tall and slender and blonde. She looked like a Lemurian from the get-go.
6'2", wow.
Yes.
Right. Okay, and I know there's also mention of this lady called Sarula, who's supposed to be the daughter of the king and
Sarula ducks.
Sarula.
Yes, I would love to meet Sarula. You know, I did. Somebody had told me about her, and so I listened to the YouTubes of her kind of documentation on her purpose and what she's doing here. I don't know if she's still on the surface. I can't find any resources.
Yeah, I've searched as well. I couldn't find.
And for some reason, I want to believe that when she was surface bound, that she was actually residing in Arizona for some reason. I don't know why I think that. I just get that feeling that that's where she was. But yeah, she's supposed to be the daughter. She's a princess and was very articulate. I have met one other individual that lives in the Shasta area that is a Telosian. I was introduced to him by Matthew because Matthew said, yeah, you should meet this guy because he looks just like you. But, you know, I know he's a Telosian. He just doesn't come out very much. He doesn't want really contact with anybody else. So the day I got to meet him was kind of under those circumstances. Look, I'm happy being alone. But yeah, he was tall, blonde, and even as a human, his features were like ageless, just no flaws in their being. That kind of crystalline light being, whatever that form is, it does not show wrinkles and wears the way that our bodies do.
Yeah, that reminds me, we didn't talk about that they look ageless, so they basically look young. And they have many thousands years, is that?
Who knows, it hundreds of years old or thousands of years old. It's been suggested that some of them are tens of thousands of years old, but these forms don't show that. Right. They are not carbon, they don't break down. Yeah. They're light beings.
Okay, and I understand it's because they don't have aging in the sickness. No, they don't get ill.
It was funny when I keep seeing these promos about med beds.
Oh yeah,
and that that's what's coming next for us. Well, if humanity comes up with that, that's a wonderful thing. But if you think that that's part of Ascension, there isn't any sickness in Telos. No, nobody gets sick. You are a co-creator and you can manifest anything you want. We all know in this dimension, when we finally figured it out, that the maladies that we had, we self-perpetuated. Yes, we brought those conditions into our own awareness. So keep your mind clear. And why I haven't seen a doctor or had one since my mind got set that way in 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I don't take medication. There's nothing inside my body that doesn't take care of itself already. And so I'm not a spring chicken.
If we raise our frequency, we will get healed automatically.
Absolutely.
Do this shift. Yes. We won't need med beds. Okay.
Your form knows what it needs, and it's designed to take care of itself if we get out of its way. If we feed it the proper things in this incarnation, I'm curious to see, what happens next and what we actually get to eat, because I had it pretty good in the third dimension.
So do you think we could be around for a long, long time?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I do.
I'm getting that into my consciousness as well. So I'm seeing a whole
Yeah.
different life in front of me, you know.
As I went back through the Ascension Handbook for some more details on what really to expect. And at first, when I read it, I kind of glossed it over and went, yeah. Well, when I went back to read it in detail to understand what the physical phenomenon is going to take place when a shift happens, our vibration, because there's two bodies to us. There's a physical body and there's an etheric body. The etheric body is what goes along with everything else. Your physical body, is left behind. So when we become this crystalline thing on the other side, it's not that this is the way I look. I got this much hair left and I'm balding, and those things are not on the other side. Your form, you choose your authentic self, and that's what you look like. I want to see how tall I get to be.
Yeah.
It's been suggested that, when in the review of galactic history, when the Lemurians finally left and went to Sirius, and then they came. Originally, those were 20-foot tall beings. Oh my God. Over time, humanity has just gotten shorter. There was a time when we were 10 and 12 feet tall, just like Adama and the Lemurians that I've seen. But we all tend to be, like a 7-foot person around here is tall.
Right. So how tall did you say the Lemurians were? 20
8
foot.
or 9 feet. Oh, originally, when seeding first place, the Lowellians that came here to help assist and seed the planet were 20-foot beings.
20 foot. And then you say they went to Sirius?
The Lemurians, when whatever broke apart in Lemurians and they needed to find a new home, many of them went to Sirius.
Went to Sirius. Maybe that's what I did then.
That you have that look about you, kind of red hair, kind of like a copperish complexion. That's Lemurian. But the chances are that you didn't come straight from there, that you probably passed through Sirius as well.
And then I came to Atlantis after that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you passed the Lemuria too.
I did.
That's just historically, that would have been, your soul would have passed through that space.
I know.
And then you ended up in Atlantis like the rest of us did, and probably in Egypt. And
oh yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. All those. Okay, let's see the next question. So the whole experience and what you're talking about seeing, you mean you see with your human 3D eyes open, or is this all in meditation?
Nope. It's boots on the ground, your awareness and all of your senses are alive. I can tell you that since I've reached this place, that my senses are all a lot more acute. My hearing, even my sense of taste and smell are all elevated. But hearing and seeing, it's not, your eyes can't perceive other things around us right now. That's all about vibration. And when your vibration, it matches, human beings can maintain physical form through the 5th dimension. 6th dimension is when you finally no longer require form, but your soul is still intact. You're a light being entirely then. But now, while we're physical, there are things that, where was I going with all of that? Sometimes I wander and I lose my place.
You wander
so
off.
This is one of those
you were
times that I
answering
so
the question,
apologize.
whether you saw with your human 3D eyes what you saw there.
Yes.
You saw that.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the point, is
Yes.
your vibration matches the things that you get to see. You're still using this physicality. The eyes that you have right now are capable of seeing much more than your eyes really are an interpreter for what the brain wants to interpret, right? It takes in this information, passes through the pineal gland if, we're connected, and my third eye is going to interpret that. But my brain is just a computer within this function. It's really not who I am. My brain is not that. My third eye connects to greater things and greater awareness, because my crown's up here anyway. And whatever my crown above that actually holds my soul, that's outside this physical being, well within my auric field. So yes, we're still going to be physical beings in fourth and fifth dimension too. So yes, your vibration is going to determine what you get to see and hear.
Okay, next question. Did they use sound or it says signing, maybe singing. Did they use sound or singing to transmit information?
Well, I didn't communicate with them in that way, but again, I see that that's the way the communication is going to take place later. That music resonates with our being. And it doesn't need to be, I know with me, music's been my companion since I've been young. It wasn't the radio, it wasn't TV, I wanted to listen to music. Sometimes it was the beat, sometimes it was the melody, sometimes it was the lyrics, sometimes it was just the sound of it, just instrumental. There was something unique about all of them. And that's what I always relied on when I needed to find another space outside the white noise around me. I plugged into music. It was always that. It turns out that the less lyrics in it, the more I resonated with it. There was just melody and beat is what kind of satisfied me. So I definitely see that, and sounds. God, I really want to hear what music is like in this next realm, because imagine with whatever creativity you have beyond that. Look, I love the music we've had now just within my lifetime and the things that I've heard, and my taste is varied. What comes next?
And the next question, Paula would like to know, I have to translate that, it's in Italian. What would we have to do to be allowed to enter the city of Telos?
That's the same answer I've been giving everybody. When your alignment matches, when your chakras are all cleared and aligned, and your connection from Gaia to source is complete, well, sometimes we call that a rainbow bridge. So you become that rainbow bridge. When that happens, your vibration rises. And as your vibration rises, it reveals to you more things around you that were there all along. You just didn't see because you didn't vibrate at that level. So when I say you need to get your alignment right, I've been saying that for a while. And when I've been asked during interviews, well, you got there, how do we get there? For the longest time, I said, I don't know how I got here. I have an answer to that. I went back to this Ascension Handbook that had been placed in my hands about a year and a half ago. In response to, I wanted to understand what Ascension really was. This was given to me. And documented for somebody who believed that the shift was going to be back in 2012, which he wasn't all that off. His phenomenon in the end had to do with the cosmic cycles. Oh, yeah. During the solstice periods at the end of 2012, that was when all of those galactic things completed and the new cycle began. It took our solar system until about 2016 to find themselves into this new section of the cosmos, where now we're in an elevated belt of photon energy that takes us to the golden age. That whole thing we've been talking about, waiting for, here's where we find ourselves now.
Thank you for that. And the next question from Elena is about, did you receive any information on healing modalities in Lemuria?
Yeah, you're already a healer. So I'm going to answer that now. You've asked a third dimensional question, which is, how can we heal things? And you can heal things in this dimension. When you get those abilities back and you understand how to manipulate the light that you're getting and that you have inside of you, and how to transmute that from dark energy into white light, you already have the ability to do that. In higher dimensions, you are a healer. Your body takes care of itself. We want to see that come from somewhere else, but that's a very third dimensional construct. We're waiting for something outside of ourselves to address things to help us. Now, that's not to say that we haven't benefited from guides and teachers before. When I came around to the fact that when someone asked me about how I found my way, I always pointed them to the Ascension Handbook. Here's where I got my answers. Get yours. I learned in the last couple of weeks that wasn't enough. That in the same way that I needed, it took me months to digest it in its entirety and have some reasonable level of comprehension. And I knew that I had an accelerated learning path. I understood that I had advantages that others did not, and things were placed in my path that others did not. But in the end, we all need a mentor. I didn't know that was going to be me. But yes, I have a grasp on it now. And just like I looked for a touchstone before and someone that could help me understand what the hell I'm going through, that's the role I'm supposed to play. So yes, the handbook is out there for anybody that wants it. But when I get to some of these concepts that I found hard to understand, it took me a while to just disseminate it all. And I'm finally in that place. And the universe finally said, you're ready. You're finally in the place where you can mentor others. Because 2 weeks ago, this is not what I thought where we were going. So it's actually Saturday, I start what I consider more of a study group. We've taken the first 4 components of the handbook, and each week we're going to deal with one live for 2 hours, and then the recording will be available after that. But people that want to be able to engage in a live debate like this, where there's an exchange, and I'm not just, it's not a lecture. If I wanted to give you a lecture here, I can just point you to the pages of the handbook, but I want to understand the contents of it. So we're going to deep dive into it over the next 4 weeks, take one of the first 4 sections and, answer it. And then there'll be some clarity. I know that there's triggers in that information for others because it was for me. Now it's time for me, just like I said, I came to assist others understand it. Here's how that's one of my contributions.
The next question is about photos. Whether you took any photos in Telos?
My phone went dead while I was up there, and it never occurred to me to turn it on again or to try it. Yeah, but when I tried to restore it, when the sound went out, that's when the phenomenon I was explaining about it looked like there were shadows, and I felt the breeze. I forgot about my phone after that. I just stuck it back in my pocket. And it wasn't until I got back to the car after all this happened and the hike on the way back when I finally occurred to me to turn my phone back on.
Okay. And someone is asking about the Ascension Handbook.
Yes. You can find it on my website. It's 40kftview.com. 40,000 foot view is what it's supposed to be an acronym for. And if you look at where the home in the navigation, there's a subcategory underneath the word home, and you'll see the table of contents for the Ascension Handbook. It's there available for anybody to take advantage of. Go find it there, and then you'll find the subsections beneath that.
It's a book.
There's
Is it a book you've written?
it's no, this was, I don't want anyone to think that this was given to me its an entirety. There was someone named Master Tony who this was given to. His guides instructed him to document all this information, so when the time came, it would be ready for others. And again, as I said, it was done with the idea that the shift was going to take place in 2012. So you'll see some language that I did not change in any of it. It's my job now, the Master Tony's not here, to take the handbook, and I picked up the baton to pass it along to others now. That's how I got it. When I asked for my guides to show me a source to help me understand Ascension, this is what they gave me. So it wasn't, the design wasn't to put it out there for others. No, this was my proof. And so I put what truth I found in it out there for others to hopefully find their own truths.
Okay, then I like the next comment. Marion says, I always knew I wasn't overweight. I'm just supposed to be 8 feet tall.
Well, you probably are. Yeah, that's just a lot of compression. You can blame it on gravity, because I think that has to do something with it, right? Because if we were pressed down against the earth, maybe I would be 8 feet tall now too.
Mary Mabe says, did you say the capstone was a gift from demons? No, he said from Venus.
From Venus, yes. It was given to them by Venus, yes.
Okay. Okay. Just looking through the comments whether there's another question. Okay. Someone says, can you please say your website again?
I think Wesley actually just posted it in the comments.
Oh, okay,
I think I saw it go by.
Good.
Yes, thank you so much for that.
And someone is asking about the information about the Galactic Librarian.
The woman I mentioned before, Judith Kussel, that YouTube is wonderful. And actually it was so wonderful. If you go to my website, under the About listing, there's a news and information page. And I've listed the interviews I've been in, but at the bottom of it, there's 2 YouTubes that I found that have been remarkable to me. One you'll need to look at, but the other one was Judith being interviewed, and she goes through this galactic history. I loved it. I will go back and listen to it again just to take in her knowledge of that whole galactic history, because she's got it down packed.
Okay, so I think I think that's all the questions, and a number of people said they had to leave now. So we've almost talked for 2 hours. Should we stop now?
Well, I knew that was going to happen. I know in our minds, it's always like 90 minutes, but I certainly want to be able to address people that have questions.
And one question I had was, I was wondering whether the Telosians do martial arts. Probably not. But
there's no aggression there.
And
when I say that, let me give you an example. When I was told about the life that lives in this 5th level in Telos, there's animals of all species. There's no aggression there. They don't eat meat. They are vegetarian in nature too. So that whole idea of the lion and the lamb laying together, that is the nature of a place that lives according to the law of one. We know we're all connected. All
Mhm.
sentient beings are connected. And so why would we wish any harm upon anybody else when we know that that's part of me?
I mean, I was just thinking more in terms of exercising themselves, not to do harm to anyone.
You're
Tai
a
Chi.
light being. I don't
Someone says
know.
Tai
There's
Chi.
no muscle, no bone. We don't worry about
There's
any
no
of that
muscle for
physicality any longer.
Okay. All right. All right. So I'm just going to thank everyone here. Thank you, everyone who asked questions. Thank you for tuning in. And it
Yes,
has
thank you
truly
very
been
much.
a blessing to be the host here. And thank you so much, Lowell, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So I just want to say, if anyone would like to leave any comments in the Warrior of Light community, my Facebook group, maybe you would let us know what your greatest takeaway was from this too. That would be
I would love to hear it.
nice. And if you have more questions, try and ask your questions in the Facebook group.
You're going to be posting this later, is that correct?
I'm going to post that. I'm going to send everyone who registered a replay. I saw at some point we had over 60 people here listening, but there were over
Nice.
about 130 that had registered. So they will all get the replay. And
Nice.
I will then also at some point, maybe in a week or so, I will just let everyone watch it on YouTube. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I've got a
everyone.
dash. It's good to see you. Let's stay in touch, okay?
Absolutely. Hold on, I'm just going to tell Wesley to stop the recording. Can you stop the recording, Wesley, now?